Most people blink in about 4 seconds. It takes the average human heart roughly 8 seconds to complete a single beat. In that exact same sliver of time, less than a single breath, an entire understanding of physics was dismantled. We aren't talking about a movie stunt. We aren't talking about wires or camera angles or a choreographed dance routine where the bad guy agrees to fall down. We are talking about a room full of the toughest men on the planet, watching something that their brains simply refuse to process. You have to understand the context of violence in the mid-60s to understand why this moment shattered reality. Back then, power was synonymous with volume. If you wanted to hurt someone, you wound up. You pulled your arm back, you screamed, and you threw your entire body weight into a haymaker. Power was big, power was loud, power was heavy. And then, a man stepped onto a stage in California and proved that power could be silent. He proved that violence didn't need distance to travel. He showed the world that you could generate the force of a car crash in a space smaller than the length of your thumb. But before the cameras flashed and the body hit the floor, there was a moment of absolute suffocating skepticism. Let's go back there. It is August 2nd, 1964. We are inside the Long Beach Municipal Auditorium. The atmosphere is thick, heavy with the specific humidity that comes from 3,000 people breathing in a closed space. The air smells of stale popcorn, floor wax, and the sharp, metallic tang of nervous sweat. This is Ed Parker's International Karate Championships. The energy in the room is restless. The crowd is rowdy. They've spent hours watching giants collide. They are used to seeing towering men with necks like tree trunks, men who look like they were carved out of granite, trading blows that you can feel in your chest from the back row. The audience wants a show. They want carnage. They want the loud, performative aggression they paid for. Instead, the announcer calls a name that, at this point in history, is just a whisper in the martial arts community. A slight, wire-thin man in a black uniform walks onto the mat. He's 23 years old. He stands maybe 5'7" on a good day, weighing in at $135 soaking wet. He doesn't strut. He doesn't beat his chest. He looks more like a philosophy student who got lost on his way to the library than a fighter about to redefine combat. He moves to the center of the stage with a casual, fluid energy that looks almost lazy compared to the rigid military stiffness of the karate competitors. He smiles. It's a disarming, almost playful smile. He isn't there to fight a match. He is there to demonstrate a theory. Ed Parker, the tournament organizer, asks for a volunteer from the audience. He doesn't ask for a weakling. He asks for someone solid. A massive guy steps up. This volunteer isn't an actor. He's a heavy-set man, likely a practitioner himself, built like a refrigerator. You can see the confidence in his walk. He plants his feet on the mat like concrete pillars. He bends his knees, bracing his core, locking his structure. Look at the volunteer's face. There is a smirk there. A very specific kind of smirk. It's the look of a man who knows how mass works. He is looking at this small man in the black suit and doing the math. I outweigh him by 80 pounds. He has no running start. He has no leverage. I am safe. The room goes quiet, but it's a skeptical, judgmental silence. You can practically hear the whispers in the front row. They are waiting for the kid to fail. They are waiting for the laws of physics to assert themselves. Then Bruce Lee steps in. He doesn't square up. He stands with his right foot forward, knees slightly bent. He extends his right arm. He places his fingertips lightly against the volunteer's chest. He isn't pushing. He's measuring. He closes his hand into a loose fist. Here is the contract. Here is the rule that makes no sense to the 3,000 people watching. Bruce Lee pulls his fist back, but he doesn't pull it back to his hip. He doesn't pull it back to his shoulder. He pulls it back exactly 1 inch. That is the distance, 1 inch. To the human eye, an inch is nothing. It is a rounding error. It is the width of a quarter. In the world of fighting, an inch is 0. You cannot generate acceleration in an inch. You cannot transfer momentum in an inch. It is physically impossible to generate kinetic energy without space to travel. That is what every person in that auditorium believes. That is what the volunteer believes. The volunteer braces himself for a shove. He tightens his abdominal muscles, expecting a steady pressure that he can easily lean against. He thinks he is about to be the anchor that exposes this trick. He is betting his dignity on the fact that you need distance to generate power. The crowd leans in. Some are stifling laughs. The tension in the room is weird. It feels like a prank. They are waiting for the punchline. But Bruce isn't looking at the crowd. His eyes are locked on the target. His body is completely still, relaxed, loose. There is zero tension in his shoulders. This is the secret that nobody in the room understands yet. They think tension is strength. Bruce knows tension is a break. For a split second, the tableau is frozen. The big man, rooted and skeptical. The small man, relaxed and close. And then the world tilts. It happens in a blur that takes less than a second. 0.8 seconds to be precise. Bruce doesn't push, he detonates. It starts in the feet, a microscopic pivot of the heel. The energy shoots up through the legs, spirals through the hips, whips through the spine and snaps at the shoulder. It is a kinetic chain reaction, a whip crack of energy moving through a relaxed body until the moment of impact. The fist tightens only at the very last millisecond. The sound is sickening. It's a dull, heavy thud, like a sledgehammer hitting a side of beef. The volunteer doesn't just stumble. He doesn't just take a step back. The laws of physics, which he was relying on to keep him safe, suddenly betray him. He is launched backward. His feet actually leave the ground, both of them. He is airborne, thrown by a force that shouldn't exist. He crashes backward into a folding chair behind him. The chair collapses. He keeps going. He slides 6 feet across the stage floor, a tangled mess of limbs and shock. The auditorium gasps. It is a collective, involuntary sound, the sound of 3,000 people forgetting to breathe at the same time. The skepticism evaporates instantly. The laughter dies in their throats. The camera shutters click a second too late. They missed the punch. It was too fast. All they capture is the aftermath. The big man on the floor looking dazed, trying to understand how a truck just hit him when there was no truck in the room. Bruce stands there. He hasn't moved his feet. He hasn't broken a sweat. He drops his hands to his sides. The silence that follows isn't judgmental anymore. It is terrified, because everyone in that room just realized something. They realized that everything they thought they knew about strength was wrong. They realized that size doesn't matter. They realized that being loud doesn't make you dangerous. But what Bruce does next is even more shocking than the punch itself. And this is where the real lesson begins. This is the moment that separates a fighter from a master. Most men, after humiliating a giant, would gloat. They would celebrate. Bruce does not celebrate. He steps forward. He extends an open palm. Not a fist. A palm. The volunteer is still blinking, trying to reassemble his reality while sitting in a heap of metal chair legs. He looks up, expecting mockery. In 1964, the martial arts world is tribal and ego-driven. If you knock a man down, you usually stand over him to let everyone know who the alpha is. But Bruce isn't looking down at him. He is looking at him. There is genuine concern in his eyes. He helps the big man to his feet. He dusts off the volunteer's shoulder. He bows. In that moment, the silence in the auditorium shifts again. It moves from shock to something far deeper. Respect. Bruce Lee didn't just win a bet. He dismantled an entire belief system about what power looks like, and then he immediately proved that true power doesn't need to be cruel. He showed them that violence is a tool, and like a scalpel it should be used with absolute precision or not at all. The volunteer nods, still dazed, and walks off the stage. He entered that circle as a skeptic. He leaves it as a believer, and as he steps back into the shadows of the arena, the rest of the room begins to thaw. The whispers start up again, but the tone has changed. The skepticism is gone, replaced by a frantic attempt to analyze what they just witnessed. How did he do it? Physicists have spent decades breaking down that how. 8 seconds of footage. They talk about summation of forces. They talk about the kinetic chain. They explain that Bruce didn't just use his arm. In that fraction of a second, his feet pushed into the floor, his knees snapped straight, his hips rotated, his spine whipped and his shoulder locked, all in a perfect sequential wave of energy that culminated at the end of his knuckles. Most fighters move like a door slamming shut, stiff, heavy, predictable. Bruce moved like a whip. A whip is soft, a whip is flexible. But the tip of a whip travels faster than the speed of sound because of how that energy transfers. Bruce Lee was the whip. But the technical explanation misses the point. The point isn't the physics, it's the philosophy. The reason that volunteer went flying wasn't just because Bruce was fast. It was because the volunteer was rigid. He was bracing. He was tense. He was relying on his mass and his resistance. And Bruce was water. He flowed through the gaps in the man's defense. He didn't fight the man's strength. He bypassed it entirely. That demonstration in Long Beach rippled out of that humid auditorium and changed the world. A television producer was in the crowd that day. He saw the tape. That tape made its way to Hollywood. That tape is the reason Bruce Lee became the Green Hornet. That tape is the reason the world knows his name. If he had missed, or if he had just shoved the guy, history would look very different. But he didn't miss. Years later, people still talk about the 1-inch punch. It became a party trick for imitators, a challenge for bodybuilders, and a myth for children. But looking back at the footage now, with the clarity of hindsight, the punch itself is the least impressive part of the story. The most impressive part is the control. Think about the confidence it takes to stand in front of 3,000 people, in front of cameras, in front of critics who want to see you fail, and bet your entire reputation on a single inch of space. If he fails, he is a joke. If he fails, he is just a small man pushing a big man. He didn't rely on a backup plan. He didn't ask for a running start just in case. He stripped away everything that wasn't necessary. He removed the wind-up. He removed the scream. He removed the ego. He left only the essential truth. And that brings us to the uncomfortable question, the mirror. Because this story isn't really about fighting, it's about how we generate power in our own lives. Most of us are like the volunteer. We think that to be strong, we have to be rigid. We brace ourselves against the world. We stiffen up when things get hard. We think that if we just stand there, planted like concrete pillars, nothing can move us. We confuse stubbornness with strength. Or we are like the other fighters in the room that day. We think power is about volume. We think that to be heard, we have to yell. To be respected, we have to be aggressive. To get what we want, we have to take a running start and crash into problems with brute force. We work harder, not smarter. We burn out trying to push walls that won't move. Bruce Lee asks us to look at that 1 inch of space and realize that we are doing it wrong. Where are you relying on brute force in your life right now? Is it in your career, where you're grinding yourself to dust, thinking that exhaustion is a badge of honor? Is it in your relationships where you're screaming to be understood, thinking that if you just get louder, they'll finally hear you? Are you loud because you are strong, or are you loud because you are scared? True mastery is silent. True power doesn't need a wind-up. It doesn't need to announce itself. It is efficient. It creates maximum impact with minimum wasted effort. It requires you to relax, to take the tension out of your shoulders, and to trust that precision beats size every single time. And finally, look at the aftermath. When you finally win, and you will win, what do you do with that moment? When you prove the doubters wrong, when you launch the obstacles backward and stand victorious in the center of the ring, who do you become? Do you stand over them and gloat? Do you use your power to humiliate the people who didn't believe in you? Do you let your ego take the wheel? Or do you step forward? Do you offer a hand? Do you check to make sure the people around you are okay? The legend of Bruce Lee wasn't built on the violence. It was built on the humanity that followed it. He showed us that you can be the most dangerous person in the room and the kindest person in the room at the exact same time. So, the next time you feel like you need to wind up, scream, and force your way through a problem, stop. Take a breath. Find your stillness. You don't need a mile. You don't need a running start. You just need 1 inch and the discipline to make it count. Who are you waiting to become? The statue that breaks, or the water that flows?